that don't have a 4 and have been teaching forever. Isn't their education, that they've been educating for so many years come into account? I mean, I just think that you put it up to a 4 with all these people that have been educating, it kind of doesn't make sense to me. Amy?
So this is where we would have to, you can't immediately require people to have a 4. There are people working in education that have a 3.5 that barely have a 3.5. It's going to take them time to get the skills, which is why I'm sad to see those 12 hours of required continuing ed to go, because that's what gives interpreters the impetus to take workshops to improve their skills, so that they could work towards a 4. So some interpreters that are currently working, you're right, Tina, are going to need to do some serious work to improve their skills. But it's similar to when teacher standards change, when they start, requiring teachers to have, what do you call it? When they have to be highly qualified. So they have to have, paperwork that for the field that they teach in. So if you don't have the science thing, then you can't only teach science. You have to teach other things. I don't do teaching, so I don't know. But so when we raise those standards, it's going to take time for people to, 1, get their skills up, 2, take their tests, and then it gets us into the same issue that we're in right now. 3, wait for the results. So it wouldn't be something that could happen now. There would need to be a timeline so that by a certain date, so when they first implemented the OARs, you were given, you were given a date a few years out that you had to have that 3.5 by and to have your results back by. It wasn't an immediate thing. So
you increase the standard. That doesn't mean that everybody who already holds the license has to meet that standard. I mean, anybody after the rules permanent.
right, but our license is only 1 year.
That's a renewal. You don't have to read the application requirements. We just renew.
I'm sorry, Sammy, can you explain that more?
So what you did the other day is you filled out an application.
Right.
You, met all the credentials. And then
Right.
in 1 year, you're gonna get a renewal notice. You're gonna sign it, send some money, and send it back.
And that's all you do
That's
from
all
here
you're
on
gonna
out.
do. We're not gonna re-credential you and check scores and grades. Then that's gonna happen again.
So if I'm an educational interpreter and I get the current license at 3.5, and then it gets changed, and then it's changed to a 4, I never have to have a 4.0?
Yeah, you could maybe write a rule that way, but it wouldn't be normal.
Then
Wouldn't be the norm.
how do standards get raised then? If
Well-
people having a license never have to meet the new standards, then what's the point of raising standards?
For future people. I mean, what I'm hearing you say is if I've been doing educational interpreting for 40 years and I had 3.5, and now tomorrow there's a permanent rule that says everybody needs to meet 4.0 by July of 2026, that's a big burden on that person who's been doing it for 40 years. That's not normal. We wouldn't normally do that. You can do that.
It would require them to reapply, basically.
Yeah.
So if I'm a doctor and I have a certain level of something and standards are raised, me as a doctor who's been a doctor for 40 years, never has to learn anything new, never has to get new skills, never has to improve what they're doing.
Maybe I'm not saying this right. You could, a renewal requirement be that a one time somebody shows a 4.0. You could do that. Or you could say every year, educational sign language interpreters are going to attest to taking 15 hours of continuing education so that their competencies continue to grow. And that's what doctors do. They have CEs that they take annually, whatever, for many things, and that's how they keep their skills up.
And for the interpreters, this is good. We're gonna do a quick switch. I think that's respiratory.
It just boggles my mind that if the current standard is 3.5, and then in 5 years, if we decide that it's gonna be a 4.0, that person with 3.5 now has substandard skills, because we've now said that the minimum standard is a 4.0, but that 3.5 person can keep working.
So let me put it to you this way. So I have a driver's license, and I've had it since I was 16. And now, at that time, they required me to take a driving test and a written test. And the written test was 25 questions. But now it's a 100-question test. Do I need to pass the 100-question test? No. I renew my license. Boom, go. I don't even have to do CEs. I just renew my license. Does that help context wise?
Right.
I have,
Tina,
no. Okay. So
Gonna
this,
go to the next person because, yeah.
no, that didn't make,
I'm not quite sure that that's comparing apples to apples. I don't know. Or maybe we should have to take a driving test. Sammy, I'm not sure that helped.
well,
Maybe
here's
we
another example. Nurses. Nurses now have to hold VAs. The registered nurses who have associates don't have to get the VAs now. They just have their registered nurse license and they've had it for however long they've had it. But now new nurses that come in have to have their bachelor's of nursing. But all of these guys don't. Respiratory therapy, another great example. If you have the CRT prior to 2017 or something like that, you have an RT license. Now you have to have a RT license, but we don't make all the CRTs to get the RT. They've already met a credential. They've already met the standard at the time that they applied. And over time, those application requirements change. Sometimes they lower, sometimes they higher, usually they increase. But we're not gonna make the RT who's been licensed for 30 years go back to school and get a bachelor's degree because now that's what's required to get a respiratory therapy license.
That's what they did to teachers when they started requiring master's degrees.
Done at HLO. Those are real world examples.
So I have a second point to make. Educational license. Tina, go ahead. Educational licenses are only good for 5 years of renewals. You can only renew it 5 times. So once you're done, then you're gonna go to supervisory license. You can put that 4 on the supervisory license. And that's your guys' goals, right? Is to have time limits on all these licenses to get everybody to a supervisory license. So you can put your higher standards on the supervisory license and leave the educational license the way it is. Just a thought.
So many thoughts. Thank you all for explaining and trying to help clarify this very confusing process that we're in.
Oh, and Tammy, one other thing, this is Tina again. The racks, when you had mentioned the racks before, HLO has their own rack. Department or ODE has their own rack. They don't work together.
Yeah, I know, they're separate, totally.
Okay. So any other, so what do we do from now?
we need to get direction to the right.
Yeah, would need direction on what to do.
So any other comment, or Sammy, can you provide us the next direction? If there's no other comment from the board? This is Jack.
So you can leave the rule alone, just how it is today. How it is today in the rule in the land. You can take what we provided you in your materials, that includes the attestation and the proof of renewal for the EIPA score. And you can adopt temporary rule. Or you can take that same rule, delete the renewal and attestation requirement of EIPA, leave the laundry list of recognized credentials. Or you could do missions idea, which is attest to the EIPA passing score and show language proficiency and a time of renewal show that you passed the EIPA.
Okay, Heather?
So maybe a procedural way to work through this is to take a vote on whether or not you would like to today make a change to the current rule. And then that would give you, if the vote is no, you don't want to make a change to the current rule right now, then that's the step forward is we'll take information back to the RAC and there's no change to the current rule today. If the outcome of that vote is that, yes, you do want to make change to the current rule, then you can discuss what your next step is, which other option you want, whether you want the proposed temporary rule, the proposed temporary rule with changes, such as Mish's idea, or just with the elimination of the attestation. But maybe the first procedural step is to determine whether or not you want to make a change to the rule currently.
Or leave it alone.
This is Jack. Go ahead, Audrey. Go ahead.
I just wanted to say that my proposal for now would be that we leave. Now I'm gonna get the language wrong, but leave the original rule as written and not make any changes this time.
That's a motion.
Sure, it's a motion.
This is Mish, I second.
Recognizes Mish's second, so I guess we can go ahead and vote. We'll start with Al. Are you in support of that?
Can you see me all right? Okay, I'm neutral.
I'm gonna abstain.
Abstain.
Okay, Mish? In support? Aye, okay. Pammy?
In support.
Audrey? In support? Sorry. Eric?
In support.
And I as well.
Okay. Is there any other feedback that you'd like us to take to the RAC? I've got the EIPA 4 above, I don't know if you know what it goes to. And that to possibly have a requirement.
5.
Eric? Something?
It just goes up to 5.
Right,
Let
thank you.
Sammy know.
And then look at a continuing education number of hours for the education license since ODE removed the 12 hours.
Eric?
And I just wanted to add if there's any way that they can, I just lost my thought. I'm sorry. I can't think of what I was going to say.
No problem.
Something that you wanted the RAC to do?
So I guess point is some feedback.
I remember. If the proposal is to bump to 4.0, there needs to be like a, some kind of pathway, some grandfather period, something to consider. Just because for me, the way it sounds is if, like right now, we voted and said, yeah, let's bump to 4.0. In my region, there's going to be 29 school districts out of compliance. So if we're going to make a jump, there needs to be some kind of period of transition or something for the school districts to keep up with that change. And I think we've discussed about how quickly the turnaround is from graduation to certification, and that's already like 5 years, and we're talking at 3.5. So if it's 4.0, we need to put the RAC needs to put some thought and consideration to how long that period would be, just as my 2 cents. Thank you.
Just a quick clarification that time period is for EIPA 4.0, not EIPA 3.5.
And so can I make sure that I understand?
Oh, Tammy, and then, oh, okay, sorry.
Am I
Tammy, go ahead.
am I gonna take, or am I giving them options? Either everybody who holds a license is grandfathered at 3.5, or everybody who holds a license now and beyond has to get a 4.0. That's a totally different rule.
This is
Eric, yep.
Yeah, this is Eric. I would recommend the grandfathering. I think it might sound a little selfish maybe from an interpreter's perspective, but like for me, like I've already got my certification. So if I'm going to have to go back and retest and pay more for new certifications when I've already proven I've got the chops, like it kind of, I am not in support of that.
Okay, thank you for clarifying.
Tammy,
So allowing a certain amount of time, if we send it back to the RAC and they discuss the 4.0 requirement, allowing a certain amount of time for people to get to that 4.0 will have to happen, as we've talked about. And also, as Tina mentioned, the educational license can only be renewed 5 times. So at some point, they have to improve their skills. And I believe that does that mean they have to go to supervisory? So they have to get to RAD, which is more than a little more than a 4.0, almost, in my opinion. I don't have the statistics to back that up. But so regardless, an interpreter is going to have 5 years from their first license to pass the RAD, which means school districts are going to have to do the work they need to do financially to start paying interpreters that qualify as an RID certified interpreter in order to keep them. Because there's not many people, and we've talked about this before, educational interpreting becomes a training ground. So they come with their 3.5, they work for a few years, they get some skills, then they get that RID and they go other places where they can make more money. So they're still not going to stay at the school districts unless the school districts start paying more. And so they're going to need time to get caught up with that as well.
The interpreters are going to switch. Okay, thank you. For your experience, yeah. Jack, okay. Okay, so what is next? So we made the proposal. Yep, you said don't do anything, so then we don't have to do a proposed rule. We're approving a proposed rule or rule schedule, so now it's public and interested parties feedback.
Okay. Didn't we skip? The, Jack, can you say that again, please? Skip what? Skip what? Oh, did we already have the executive? I see it's on the agenda, but we didn't do that yet. Or the executive session, or?
It was a placeholder. Just in case we needed it.
Oh, okay. So we don't need to do it, okay. So since we're past that, okay, how about public interest and feedback? We can open. For script.
He has a script.
Yeah, we need to look for our script. We got that script somewhere.
Can you ask him to wait? Thank you. Yes. Interpreters are ready.
Right one?
Yep, right. Before I start this, I'm wondering if anybody needs a bathroom break. We could do just a quick let's say 10-minute break, a recess.
Okay.
Okay, I call a 10-minute recess, beginning at 1:03, back at 1:13. Thank you.